Welcome to Carter's Retro Reviews. You know, I normally do these funny little things for my intros, but not this time. This is serious. Look at this shit. Road Rash for the Saturn. Okay, nothing too out of the ordinary there, except look at the fucking case. Look at it. What a piece of shit. It's big, it's bulky. I mean, okay, granted, the manual inside is War and Peace, right? Which, it doesn't need to be for a game like Road Rash. I mean, get on the bike and ride and kick punch. How hard is that? You don't need 35 pages to tell me how to do that. It's in 37 languages, of course, 27 of which don't exist anymore. But then, okay, alright, okay. So, it's got these little cool tab things at the top. That's fine. But what the fuck? The rest of it looks so out of place in my collection. It is ridiculous. I mean, you've got these nice little thin PAL titles, and then this fucking bulky piece of shit. Disappoint me, EA. I mean, EA, this whole thing of being the worst company in the world is not a new thing. You've been disappointing people for years. And look at this bullshit. I'm sorry this is such an out of control intro and it's so angry, but Jesus Christ, EA. Fuck. What the fuck were you thinking? Who thought that was a good idea? Really? Dear Mum and Dad, the year was 1994. All year long, I'd been pining for a game with 2 words in it. 2 words! Road Rash. My birthday and Christmas are around the same time, so I knew the safe bet was that I'd get one game, at least one game, for both. And that game was Road Rash. Hey Mum, knock knock. Who's there? Your son, and he loves you. And you know what else he loves? Road Rash. So please buy it for me. Without dragging this story out any longer than it needs to be, I feel that there was a miscommunication somewhere. What part of Road Rash was not understood? That Christmas, I went downstairs to the tree and I opened up all my presents. Okay, yeah, sure, there's some really cool stuff in there, Mum. But what the fuck is this? Gex? Gex! Don't you love me, Mum? I don't know how to say it any more plainly, but of course, my words had fallen on deaf ears. Mum found out it was a violent video game and thought my fragile little mind was too easily swayed, and if I played this game, I'd turn into a violent bikie. Well, Mum, you're just lucky the Gex was fucking awesome. So, I suppose I forgive you. Love always, Canada Brad. I've made the point before that if we're not really careful with our video game violence, that society will collapse and we'll all descend into orangutans with guns that will somehow trigger mental instability, causing us to go and shoot a bunch of kids at school. Why can't we produce content and whatever happens, happens? Let stupid work its magic. But of course, you can't have an opinion like that with some idiot being all like,
"Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?"
This game has been released on a multitude of consoles including the Mega Drive, Master System, Game Boy, 3DO, PC, PlayStation and Saturn. It's had several sequels including 2, 3, 3D, Jailbreak and Road Rash 64. Presentation of the game is pretty good, but there's a few little things that are a bit strange or different, and I couldn't tell you whether these are a bad thing or not. We have the credits to the game on the start menu screen. Usually they're seen after I finish the game normally, right? It also contains throughout these really bizarre pictures in the background with big heads that have detail. The menus are logical and laid out very plainly, but yet, as a whole, all comes together really well. The options are called the restroom, and it gives off this really grungy vibe I dig that's reminiscent of the 90s grunge scene I miss more than the movie Pearl Harbor missed the point.
And that's an awful lot, girl. And
also, I don't know if this is a glitch or whether it was meant to happen, but after going through the jukebox section in the options menu, it took me straight to the game. It didn't mention a mode or anything, it just told me to select a stage and ride. There are other points to be made, but they'll all be covered off in the sound section. Graphics are pretty good and an obvious vast improvement over the Mega Drive version. People saying that the sprites in this game are very reminiscent of Courier Crisis, which was a game I reviewed recently, and it's easy to see the comparison. There is one adjustment I'd like to make, and that's after playing this game, Courier Crisis' graphics are total shit. They looked fine at the time and I commented on them justly, but after playing this game with far better graphics, God damn, what a piece of ass Courier Crisis was to look at by comparison. It's all done using sprites giving a pseudo 3D environment, which was pretty commonplace. Thanks to the Real Blue Dragon, or as I know him, RetSub101, for letting me use this video for the comparison between PlayStation and the Saturn version of the game. It's clear to see the Saturn again reigns supreme. The only thing I can see that the PlayStation's done better is cloud detail. Whoop-de-fucking-do. The most impressive part of the graphics is the sense of speed. It looks so amazing. I can imagine what kind of technical achievement this was back in the 90s as well. The cars look a little grainy and all the levels are a little samey, but they all still have their own flavour to save me from feeling like this game only has one level to play. Sound is the biggest disappointment with this game. I usually give a black or white tick in the box approach to sound, whether it was any good. But it's amazing to see how effective sound can be. And what we're dealing with here is perhaps the biggest disappointment I've had with all the music in all the games I reviewed so far. In other games, music has either been all good or all bad all the way through the game. But not this version of Road Rash. We have an amazing soundtrack in the menu section. Then in-game, you shit in my ears. You drop trowel and give me the most polarizing disappointment to my ear canals. Why would you go to the effort of licensing an awesome soundtrack and then put it into the 5 to 10 seconds I'm in the menu? It's not even 1% of the game, why fucking bother? It would be somewhat forgiven if you gave us a pretty good in-game soundtrack as well. Even if it wasn't as good, I'd still be asking the question, sure, but then I'd be like, oh well, it's not too bad. But this? The gameplay is acceptable. The default button config is a little sloppy in that B is accelerate, A is brake, C is punch, and Y is kick? It's nothing too bad as I was able to work with the controllers. Handling was pretty good, and even then I was a little skeptical to be honest, since I remember the Mega Drive version took some getting used to as well. But once I spent 20 minutes with the game, it's clear to see that, okay, while you could make improvements on it, the handling did the job. The cars are spaced out in a way that keeps the game interesting, and yet we're far apart enough that I wasn't sitting in traffic. It really felt like the car could come at any moment. It's likened to a horror movie that keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire ride, and the scares come at the right time instead of a constant barrage of scares that ultimately feels cheap and predictable. Kicking and punching were awesome and really added to the game. The fighting mechanic is really what makes this game its own. A pretty simple premise that really adds to this game in a very big way. You don't have to be a fighter, but you better be a damn good driver as the computer likes to push you in front of oncoming traffic. Going from 15th to 1st is also very satisfying. To maintain 1st you need to show some good riding chops, so that's where the challenge is. And the tracks are nice and long as well. 8 to 9 kilometers is enough that it's a short ride, but feels much longer in a good way. It says one player on the box, but in the options, you have a player mode that you can switch between one player and two player alternate. There are two modes, Thrash mode and Big Game mode. Thrash mode is ultimately arcade, and Big Game mode gives you the additional features like a bike shop and character selection. Would I recommend this game? Minus the shit in-game soundtrack, everything else makes for a good time. The nostalgia trip is fun, sure. But it's still a pretty fun game if you don't have that. There are a few sloppy bits to it, and I don't think you'll play this for long once you've finished it, but the game is worth coming back to every now and again. So, it's a yes from me.